Hello, hello. Okay, I had some microphone issues. We're back. I hope resolved. Let's see. Is the microphone live this time? Okay. Welcome to this live. We're going to be talking about this topic of creation versus consumption. And if you're joining me for the first time, welcome. This is part of my series that I host every second and fourth Saturday of the month, all about how to live an abundant life while impacted by physical limitation. It comes from a lot of things that I've studied and my life experience from being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis at age 16 and having a now 3-year-old daughter who was born deaf. And today's topic is a fascinating one. This balance between creation and consumption and how that is impacting our energy. Um, when it really comes to living a full and abundant life and kind of navigating the impact of a physical limitation, energy is everything. And so, broadly, what we're talking about today is what your source of information or input is, or your contributions. So I'm going to give the definitions more specifically of creation and consumption. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of our scenario or the problem and why this all matters. Some what to know lists about creation and consumption, and how to use the tools more intentionally. Of course, the content is all delivered here live in this video. And then if you would like some of my notes or I'm going to be sharing at the end of this an audit and a reset exercise, which is a series of questions. If you'd like to have those questions in written form so you can really spend some time with them and work with them, you can click the link in the comments of this live. That there's maybe one or two links that will be visible here. One is to get the Get Unstuck formula. You'll get that formula and you'll get my notes when I send them out. Um, or there's another general link for more content so that you can, either way, either whichever link you click on in these comments, you will be able to receive the notes that I'll be emailing out. So um, let's talk first about definitions. Creation. Here's how to think about creation, and I'll just first share what they are broadly and how I'm defining them. Creation is personal input and contributions. Consumption is others' input and contributions. More specifically, creation is what I have done, what I will do, my view, opinion, or belief, my creation, my content, my practice of the scientific method. Scientific method being observation, hypothesis, test, start again. That is all what I would consider and how we're defining creation. Consumption, then, is what others have done. Their views, opinions, beliefs, their creations, their content, experience, advice. Um, so here's an example of creation. Um, This is something I did a few years ago when I was just starting to really explore these two ideas and to practice creation. I decided that I would develop a YouTube video, and this was the first time I'd ever done something like that. And I went ahead and drafted a little bit of a workout plan. I created a video, an exercise that combined yoga and strength. And I had never done anything like it. And I just started the video camera on my phone. I used my phone camera, and I went ahead and recorded a workout. And I put it out there on my YouTube channel. Um, and it might still be there, by the way. And And that was creation. That was just me doing something, creating something, and um, and what was unique about that, of course, is that it was the first time I was doing something and it was really messy, and that's okay. That's one of the things that we'll talk about more as we go throughout this. Um, is really what you need to believe and what you need to allow, and maybe some guidelines to really practice creation. But creation isn't just creating um, art or videos or content. Remember, the definition I gave is it's also your experience, what you have done, what you will do, and your own practice of observing your life or your situation, making a hypothesis, testing something, and trying again. This can also look like asking yourself questions and you answering them. So, creation is your personal input and contribution to your life. Okay, an example of consumption, of course, one from this week, um, advertisements, right? We have content coming to us. And there was one ad I saw that particularly grabbed my attention, and I spent a good amount of time with it. It was about a new compound that helps people build strength with very little physical activity. I was like, wait, what? Like a compound, like something you eat, and you don't have to actually do a whole lot of physical activity, and you can still build strength? Anyway, that is a classic example of consumption is what you're viewing um, through advertisements. But it's not just ads. It can be, again, other people around you, what others have done, what their opinions are, their beliefs, their advice. So consumption is other people's input or contributions um, that you're receiving or that you're taking in for your life. So why this matters? Well, these are two tools that are available, and they each have value. And when you really understand the role of each of these tools, then you can use them very intentionally, and that'll help you get what you want. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not just about using these tools. What I want to weave in here is this concept of energy. Um, energy to take the next step, energy to honor your desire, to go beyond the bare minimum that you're kind of doing in your day to day. You're often, if your experience is like mine, we can find ourselves easily in this situation where everything just feels like work. I'm just doing kind of the bare minimum work to get by. Energy to live fully and abundantly despite your physical limitation. Um, so, what is the problem? The main problem is that for so long I lived completely unaware of these two tools and what role they play in my life. And that's the problem more broadly. We don't know what role creation and consumption are playing right now. And we don't know how to use these tools effectively. And um, if we can use them effectively, we can completely change our energy and um, go about our life navigating our situation being impacted by a physical limitation in a much more effective way. Um, so let's start with the big picture. As I talk more about the problem, I want to share a little bit about the scenario you might find yourself in, a situation that I found myself in for a long time. And I want you to ask, as I describe this scenario, I want you to ask yourself, what role might creation play to help in this scenario? What role might consumption play to help in this scenario? So here's the scenario. This is a scenario of largely my life. At one point, my life is very different now because of these tools I've learned. But here's how it used to be, and what you might be finding yourself in right now. The typical day to day is you're functioning. You're going to work. You're doing your daily things. Um, but you're doing just enough to fulfill your duties. You're feeling drained, weighed down. You're unable to do more. You're unable to really drive what interests you and achieve your desires. And with whatever free time available, you're resting, maybe physically because of this impact of a physical limitation, but it's really hard to rest mentally. You're feeling this pressure to always be doing something. In some ways, it's like you're trying to make up for the areas of your life that are limited, for the desires that are unpursued. Because of the impact of a physical limitation, you're feeling behind, you're feeling like you have to catch up. And so, whenever you take a moment to rest physically, your mind keeps kind of urging you, prompting you, say, you got to do more. Or we got to do more. We got to make up for these areas of our life that are lacking. And you're often feeling like a victim. There's nothing you can do to change your situation. It's a physical limitation that you're being impacted by that's outside of your control. Um, and you just kind of were dealt with it. You maybe had no part in creating it, and now you just have to deal with it. Or you're feeling like you're walking uphill all the time. There's this added difficulty weighed upon you. You can't just go and maybe go on a bike ride with friends or family because of pain or of some sort. Or you are discouraged that you can't just have this really active and fun life because you're so bogged down by this physical limitation. Um, People have energy to do all these things, and you just don't feel like you have that same energy. And of course, the nature of this impact, this physical limitation, is it's persistent. It's not going away. It's there all the time. And you might also be feeling like no one understands you. No one understands you. You can't do what others do. Your life is harder than others. You have to put forth so much more effort. And here's the thing. No one actually knows how you can best navigate your situation. That's the thing that can be really frustrating, right? Most people around you have no clue what you're experiencing. Most people think you should have more energy, you should be able to do more. But the truth is, there's some limitation, right, on what you can or can't do. So, if any of this resonates, if any of this might describe what you're in, and as you've been thinking about this, again, the question is, what role might creation play to help you in this situation? If what I just described doesn't match your situation perfectly, just connect with your scenario and ask, what role might creation play to help me? And what role might consumption play to help me? Again, creation is personal input and contributions, consumption, others' input and contributions. Um, so now let's talk about, and actually, if please, any comments on this? Like, what role do you think these would play? Um, or what questions do you have? Or of that scenario I described, what resonated with you? Go ahead and share anything along those lines. All right, as you do that, I want to talk about a few things to know about creation and a few things to know about consumption. First, creation. To be in this place where you are um, relying on and looking to your own input, your own contributions, you must allow messy. You have to be okay with messiness because you don't know all the answers. You're often dealing with a scenario or trying to find your way through something that isn't entirely clear, that isn't given to you perfectly. Um, And so you also might be creating something for the first time, like the example I shared of this workout video I created, and you just have to let it be messy. Um, you know, the other thing is you don't have to know all the answers. To be in this energy of creation, it actually, the premise is, the foundation of this idea is that um, there's something that previously didn't exist that you are bringing into creation, right? So you're not going to know all the answers. You're not going to know the situation perfectly. You don't need to. You don't need to. Um, as I mentioned, one of the aspects of creation that can be compared to so a good comparison to make is the scientific method. When you're in creation energy, you're making an observation, you're stating a hypothesis, and then you're testing it. That's creation. Um, as you go about creation, something else to keep in mind is that other people don't have to agree with you. They're going to have their views. They're probably going to disagree with what your views are or what you're pursuing, and that's okay. Others don't have to believe in you. Others don't need to be interested in what you are doing. Um, none of that um, is necessary for you to get into this creation energy. Um, but more importantly, none of that should detract you from getting into creation energy. Um, those are often the detractors, is people disagree with you, they think you're silly, they don't believe in you, they're like, what are you doing? Like, why are you trying to figure this out yourself? Or why would you have that hypothesis? Like, that sounds ridiculous. And often people will let that completely discourage their um, their pursuit, their next step in creation. Don't let that discourage you. You just kind of see those things that others might disagree, they might not believe you knew, they might not be interested in what you're doing, and that's okay. Just set that aside and continue in what you are doing. Another thing that is important to keep in mind related to creation is you matter, just like others matter. And it's so easy based on our beliefs or the way we were raised or the situations we're dealing with right now. It's so easy to fall into the lie that others know better than me, um, that I am weak, I am um, insufficient, I'm not enough, I am foolish, or I just I I, I don't have the knowledge or the wisdom necessary. In order for you to fully embrace creation and use that tool in your life, you must know that you matter like others matter. And finally, to get into creation, you must allow failure. You have to get really comfortable with failure. Like, you know what? The way for me to work through this, the way for me to tap into my own experience, my own wisdom, my own ingenuity is to allow failure. And once you reframe failure and see it as a catalyst to what you want instead of an indication of loss or of failure, as soon as you see it as a catalyst, then you're going to make progress. You're going to learn. You're going to know what to do next. All right, now let's talk about a few things to know about consumption. Consumption being others' input, others' contributions. It might be what other people think, their own experience, lessons they've learned, all of those things. So, a few things to know. First, you can learn a whole lot from other people. There's so much value in consumption. Do that, right? We want to learn from others' mistakes and others' experiences. Um, but here's something to also keep in mind. We often get lost consuming content or learning from other people who have not done what you want to do or who have not solved the problem that you want solved. This often shows up with parent-children relationships, or any other type of it could be a religious leader or mentor. Um, Many of these people influencing our lives have not achieved the thing we are wanting to achieve, but they have an opinion, and they might have a really strong opinion, and they're sharing that opinion with you because they love you and they care about you. But keep in mind, if they have not done what you want to do, that opinion I would say the value of that opinion or that experience is limited, right? It's limited. Just know that and pay very close attention to um, who you're learning from or what content you're consuming. Another thing to know about consumption is that learning from others does not teach you the entire how of anything. This is really fascinating because people always say, hey, if I just knew how to do this, I just need to know the steps. We're always looking for the steps or the how. People can tell you the how. I can tell you how to live abundantly, how to live a full life while impacted by physical limitation. But that actually doesn't allow you to understand the how. You won't fully know the how until you do it. Until you experience an abundant and full life, until you disempower pain, until you fully um, live beyond the negative impact of your physical limitation, you won't know how. You won't know how to. The only way to really know how is actually through creation. Your own input, your own doing. Once that has taken place and you've achieved what you want, then you know the how. So keep in mind when we're consuming content or advice from others, we might think we're learning the how, but all we're hearing is some words, and we don't fully have the knowledge, the wisdom. We don't have a full understanding of the how until you do it. Okay. Um, Here's another thing to keep in mind when it comes to consumption. Other people's opinions, even their experience. Um, well, no, I'll keep it with other people's opinions are not factual. Okay, their opinions are not factual. And it's so easy to get confused about this. We will hear others' opinions and be like, oh, do you know what? Here's what they did. Um, and or with this specific situation, like I'll say this actually about the decision point we're making right now for a cochlear implant for my daughter who's deaf. And people have such strong opinions on it. And one person said, absolutely not. Like, you as a parent should not be making that decision for your child. A cochlear implant should be their decision. And some people might hear that opinion from another and think that it's factual, think that it's a truth. But then you might hear from someone else who, of course, shares something different. And then you're like confused because, wait, they're saying that you're actually giving your child more options by making this decision for them. They're too young to make the decision for themselves. And if you don't make the decision for them now, they're not going to develop speech because they're deaf, whatever. And so I'm just giving you an example. Someone will have a completely different opinion. And if you, as the consumer of this information, don't fully realize that their opinions are not factual, you're going to be very confused. You're going to be searching for the facts, searching for the truth. When it comes to decisions like this one I brought up around cochlear, like this decision for whether my daughter should get a cochlear implant, all we're living in is a world of opinions. I mean, there of course are facts related to the topic, but at the end of the day, people take those facts and they form their own views. And so And that's ultimately what I have to do, what you have to do as you're navigating your life being impacted by physical limitation. You take in facts, which are like, in this case with the cochlear implant, a fact um, would be the reliability or the success rate, right, of those who have received a cochlear implant. How successful were they in developing speech, um, or having increased hearing, increased sound before and after the cochlear implant? Like there is some factual data around that, but we take in the facts, we form our views. Um, okay, the last thing to know about consumption is that if you find yourself chasing the best path or the most right thing, this will drain you and it will lead nowhere. So just be onto yourself. Be aware of when you are chasing that best thing or that most right thing, and let that be a clue that you're maybe going in circles, right? And maybe there's not a best or a right out there. Maybe there's just information and there's decisions, and you make the decision right for you. So, how do we use these tools more intentionally? So, I'm just going to share a few questions to have a creation consumption audit and then a creation consumption reset. And again, you can click the link to get the Unstuck formula or get more content, and I will be sharing this audit and this reset over email. Um, and you, of course, can get it if you go to those links. So, what is the audit? I'm just going to walk through these questions and leave it to you to jot them down or to get on click the link and get my notes coming later, and to do this work on your own. So here it is. How can you audit creation and consumption? You can walk through a few questions. Here they are. What percent of the time am I in creation energy? What percent of the time am I in consumption energy? This is super insightful when you can actually look at what that balance currently looks like in your life. Just what percent of the time are you creating? What percent of the time are you consuming? The next question related for this audit is, what am I believing about myself?